Hello everyone, I believe many of you have raised dogs. Dogs are truly loyal friends of humans. Today, I want to tell you a story about how a black dog protected its owner. There was a young man named Q. When Q was 10 years old, one day his father had to go out for some business, leaving Q alone at home. At that time, their house had many animals, 2 cows, 6 sheep, a mother pig, dozens of piglets, and several chickens and ducks. They also had 2 dogs, one named Big Black and the other named Little Black. After school one evening, Q had his dinner and then started feeding the animals. At around 8 p.m., he had finished feeding all the animals and was about to take a break before going back inside the house. As he turned around, he thought he saw a figure quickly darting into the cowshed in the northwest corner of the yard. The cowshed was dark as there were no lights, so Q wasn't sure if he had seen correctly. Nevertheless, he instinctively asked, "Who's there?" But there was no response from the cowshed, so Q thought he might have been mistaken and was about to return to the house. Suddenly, the 2 wolf-like dogs, Big Black and Little Black, that were in the doghouse at the southeast corner of the yard rushed out and stood beside Q, growling menacingly towards the cowshed, especially Big Black. His mouth was making a low growling sound, as if he was ready to pounce at any moment. Little Black also looked prepared to attack. Seeing the unusual behavior of the 2 dogs, Q began to suspect that there might be an intruder trying to steal their cattle or sheep. The wall behind him led to the kitchen, where various farming tools were kept. Q reached for a sickle and cautiously asked in the direction of the cowshed, "Who's there?" But there was still no response from the cowshed, and Q didn't dare to approach it. They stood there in a standoff for about 10 seconds when suddenly the animals in the cowshed, including the cows and sheep, seemed to get agitated, as if they were frightened. Q became very nervous and tightly gripped the sickle, continuing to question the darkness. The 2 dogs by his side were growling even more fiercely, but there was still no sign of anyone coming out of the cowshed. Suddenly, Q felt as though something had hit his nose, and when he touched it, he found blood. This frightened Q, who was only 10 years old, and he burst into tears. At the time, there were open spaces on both sides of the house, with Q's uncle's house in front and his cousin's house behind. Q was crying and calling for help, not knowing if his cries had agitated Big Black or something else, but after he cried out, Big Black rushed toward the cowshed. Little Black, on the other hand, stayed by Q's side, protecting him. Then something strange happened. After Big Black charged towards the cowshed, he suddenly emitted a wailing sound, as if he had been struck. Upon hearing Q's cries, his uncle and cousin rushed over. Shortly after that, Little Black also ran into the cowshed. When his uncle went inside to check, he was shocked to see Q's face covered in blood. Q was crying uncontrollably, and when he calmed down a bit, he told his family about what had happened. His uncle immediately gathered 7 or 8 people with flashlights and searched the cowshed, the entire yard, and even the roof. They found nothing. Q washed his face and gradually calmed down. Big Black and Little Black ran to his side. When Q crouched down to hug the 2 dogs, he noticed that both dogs were trembling. It was past 11 p.m. when Q's father returned home. Q didn't go back inside the house that night, he stayed at his uncle's place. According to his uncle, Q talked in his sleep all night, and when he woke up the next day, he had a fever. For the next month, he had unexplained recurrent fevers. Despite going to the hospital, his condition didn't improve. Over time, the villagers heard about the strange incident that Q had experienced, and some of them privately speculated that he had provoked a ghost that night. These discussions reached Q's father, who sought the help of a local famous sorcerer. After hearing the story and observing Q's condition, the sorcerer said, "Dogs have a sense of smell and vision different from humans. They can sense things that humans cannot see or hear. I observed the location of your cowshed, and it is not in a favorable position. It may be affected by disturbances in the magnetic field, and places with disrupted magnetic fields can attract ghosts and other supernatural phenomena. I suggest you relocate the cowshed and pour a large amount of salt water in the old location. Make sure the salt water soaks the ground and keeps it consistently damp for 3 days. Your son's condition should improve. Upon hearing the sorcerer's advice, Q's father tirelessly poured salt water in the old cowshed location for 3 days. Miraculously, Q's condition gradually improved, and his health was restored. After that, nothing similar ever happened again, and that's where the story ends. These 2 dogs were indeed Q's lucky stars. Although dogs can also be frightened, they will still protect their owners when danger arises. Have you, the viewers, ever had dogs as pets? Let's meet again in the next story.